and we'd like Laura to come up here. She's been the head or the minister for transportation in the city of Mexico, and now is standing for the position of a senator, from what I understand. So welcome.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Great. Yay. Okay, well, I promise that I will be very quick with this because I think that the after lunch is always hard. Well, let's start. That's supposed to be me, or at least a political product that it is supposed to be me. But well, I am not that. So let's start. So the question is who I am, who I really am. I was born in 1982 in a small and conservative town nearby Mexico City called Querétaro, just at the beginning of the millennial generation. And I was feeling that in every single part of my soul since I was born. So imagine that picture. I built myself as an open-minded person, but in an ultra-conservative society. And I think that most of you feel the same with this. Maybe that is why, since I have memory, I am a person living a generational gap. Let's say kind of a betweener who was always being told to choose a side and push it away for being different. This is a picture of me taking a seat in the Congress. My first job, official job in politics, was to be a congresswoman in Mexico City local Congress. The one in pink, it's me. I think I'm the only one over there. And that's part of the right that I want to tell you today. For example, in politics, I have been working in politics the last 70 years, and no matter what, political groups still see me as an outsider because my gender, my ideology, my age, and of course, my millennial disruptive way of thinking. But on the other hand, the civil groups also see me as a foreigner because my active participation in politics, you know, that's very mainstream for the young people. As I said, I always have been a betweener. Nevertheless, I never choose a side because I understood a long time ago that one of my most important strengths, because I am a betweener, is to be a bridge builder. So I can be both, and I understand that a long time ago. Actually, I can be whatever I want and being part of whatever I feel, and that is okay. Because I can bring people together and find our common causes. That is how I became a congresswoman in 2012 and pushed for a new mobility law in Mexico City. So that's part of this show, what I told you. And as you may see, we are very few women also there. Only the 15% of the Congress persons are women. That's the average. But well, I wasn't always like this. I mean, this is very brand new for me. I used to be a very shy child who found that in written words a key to communicate with others. I was not able at that time to say a single word without being terrified. I used to be a nerd too, and I found in books my whole world. It was easier and safer. I discovered my abilities on academic matters, and I used them to obtain a high-quality private education, becoming the first person in my family to achieve that. As you may see, that is my mom. The other person is my sister. And I'm part of a family with strong women. I mean, my mom is a very opinionated person. She's always saying something, and she always has the reason, of course. And my sister, you can see with this, she has a very strong character too, a personality. So this is what my family is. And well, my mom is a doctor. I come from a family of doctors, so community service was always the way of life for my parents, and they taught me the value of hard work in order to save lives, and that's part of who I am since then. That is why I believe in the power of change, knowing that the most important battles are fought in direct contact with people at a street level. This is the reason I found in the mobility and road safety agenda the greatest passion and my biggest cause in my political career, Because in our cities, the most important battles are fought at a street level, just as Janet Sadikan says. I have learned that even if the national public agenda goes into the most progressive battles, we just have to take a look into our public space and see if it is a democratic space. Our streets are inclusive or accessible? Does infrastructure respect the minority rights? Who are involved in the decision-making process of this urban policy? And how does this process exactly works? Do children, women, elder population, people with disabilities, pedestrians, cyclists, and public transport users in our streets are part of this democracy? I think that those are very good questions to start, because we can speak about democracy every day, and this part of the fashion of our Occidental countries, but we just have to take a look in the streets in order to answer this. And the answer is no, especially in Mexico. In most of the Mexican cities, 80% of the road space it is driven into a car-oriented infrastructure, even if less than the 30% of the population owns a car, spending the 70% of infrastructure budget for them. Maybe someone of you knows Onésimo Flores. He's one of my friends in Mexico City, and this is part of this bridge builder that I was talking about. And it can be worse. Public policy is being discussed and planned in a bureaucratic office without transparency, accountability, or responsiveness. We are not going to be a democratic society as we want to if we don't fix this inequality. Because the concept of a universal and safe street represents the core of the community engagement, a space for liberty and rights through social and economic development. There is nothing more inclusive than a community owning their own public spaces and using multimodal transport options and safer streets without any kind of discrimination. The inequality in a society can be measured on the difference between the investment and the design of the streets. That is how the pedestrian agenda was born in my political timeline. And that is why the mobility law was born in Mexico City in 2012. And this is some examples when I was working in the Congress. The new mobility model in Mexico City was constructed over a strong collaborative effort through civil society engagement, government participation, and private sector cooperation. We created a Citizen Mobility Council to work on that regulation, and that was part of the hard job. This is part of also the community work that we were doing at that time. Through this framework, we started a new budget allocation as long-term investment strategy, from the failure of the car-oriented infrastructure into a bigger, greener mobility ecosystem. Also created institutional capacities and public policy for a sustainable model for the city. For the first time, the discretional decisions that the former mayors and also directors of these transport systems, they were allocating all the budget for the private mobility and car-oriented infrastructure. So it was for the first time through this law that we started this change, at least it was written. The law had 4 pillars: the pedestrian at the center of the public policy, public transport system as the core of the mobility network, as a human right, of course, and walking and cycling as part of the mobility ecosystem too. So this is part of the work that we have been doing. We gathered together also the cyclists and the motorcyclists and the public transport users and everybody. It was a very open and a big and a communal conversation. That's this guy with he's a motorcycle, a Harley one, with his horns, very bad, but with this sign that it is, we want the mobility law. Well, this is the new pyramid, this one that you may see with the pedestrian at the top, and then the cyclist, and then the public transport users, and then the car users. This is one part of the work that we have been doing. This is in the chamber, in the votation that day. We started a big movement that it was called Pedestrian First. We launched an app, and with that app, the people can start telling us all the failures in the infrastructure on the street in Mexico City in order to start mapping it. So it was a very good movement. At that time, it was the #1 app downloaded in the first week that we launched it. So it was interesting for the people, this conversation. So we work a lot on the street with people. And of course, the media, they were one of our biggest allies, and this is important. If you want to speak out your word, you have to work with the media. You have to work with the digital communication. This is essentially, this is not a narcissist exercise of politics. The media and the public opinion is one of the strongest arms to do public policy. So that was part of our secret weapon. We also work with political leaders in the local sector because they were very important too. You have a lot of photographs over here. And we made it. We approved that law as a unanimous decision in the assembly. And until this part, you might think that it was fun and easy, a complete history of success, as you may say, but it wasn't. Being part of the local Congress in 2012 changed my political career, not just because of the success of the mobility law, but because it was one of the most difficult times of my life. And I think that this is the first time I'm going to speak out about this. I was trying to change the mobility model in Mexico City, but at the same time, I was dealing with gender violence from the leader of my political party in the local Congress. I didn't recognize it from the beginning, his violent behavior. For him, I just had two options in order to be accepted in his team: to be seduced or to be subjected. I didn't accept it, of course, so his violence increased, trying to destroy my personal professional reputation and stopping my legislative work. I fought him back for the next 2 years, alone, thinking that maybe I could be fixed by my own, or that maybe it was my fault at some level. I never realized that he will never stop, because there was no problem at all. His problem was me being a woman, and a very opinionated one. At the end of my period in the Congress, he succeeded. I was completely isolated from my political party and my main allies. Of course, we obtained the mobility law, but that was part of the shiny story. I felt alone, and I thought that my only way out was to present my resignation to my political party. So I did it. In 2015, with 15 years of being part of the PAN party, I went out. Today, I recognize that I would manage better that terrible episode if I just had more experience. I have 29, 30 years old at that time. I didn't have the tools at that time, but also the institutional arrangement in politics in order to protect women was inexistent. That's why one of my biggest commitments right now is to prepare the next women regeneration in mobility. And I want them to be better and bolder than my generation, with more comprehensive rules in order to protect us. So today in front of you, I will speak out and say this: me too. And this is part of what women have to battle, and this is part of the challenges that we have to fight together. And for me, it's very important to be with you, united and together, to defeat this. But, thank you. But this story ain't over yet. I keep walking. I keep working with the civil society groups and media. And also I built new political allies. You have to find new friends if the other ones don't like you. In 2015, the mobility law was approved in the local Congress, and I was invited by Mayor Miguel Ángel Mancera to be part of his cabinet as the head of the new mobility model office in Mexico City, and later as under the Ministry of Mobility. And this is part of the announcement that the mayor did that day with the other members of the cabinet that were invited at that time. He made changes in the half period of his administration. In the past 3 years, we started a change in our policy and regulation. For example, our new comprehensive road safety program, introducing the Vision Zero agenda for the mobility for the first time, and 3 more disruptive regulations in mobility and urban development. The first in Latin America region, the transport network companies, where we opened the door for the Uber and Cabify services, the TNCs, And we were the first city in Latin America in order to do that. The parking regulation that decreased the number of parking spaces in the new urban developments too, it was part of our job in these 3 years of hard work. And the traffic regulation, one that among other things, lowers the vehicle speed limits in order to save lives. Yes, in Mexico City, the car city, we decreased the speed limits and we started to save lives on the roads. The results, thank you. That wasn't easy either. The people hate me because of that, but that's okay. It's part of my job. It wasn't the first time. The results are that we decreased in 18% the number of deaths in our roads with the decrease of the speed limits and with the safer infrastructure that we start to create in the intersections. We rescue the most dangerous ones in 173. It is 1,000, more or less, so we are just doing baby steps, but it is part of the starting point that we are working right now. And we are expanding our pedestrian, cyclist, and public transport infrastructure in 21%. Of course, this is not enough, but it is the beginning of a new order. We have a new law, we have new planning tools, we have a new institutions, we create the mobility ministry. It wasn't at that time part of the administration. And we have right now a little but a tougher team of technical persons who are working with this, specialized people who are working with this. I have to say that through this experience, I found my political compass. And I understood that the core of my job was the civil society causes, not the political party interests. Now, I am an independent political actor. I am running for the Senate in Mexico City. And I work with all political parties, everybody. I am building a wide national and international network. I want to be part of the urban transformation of the region, and this is precisely what I'm doing right now here with you. This is part of the work that we made at that time with the Vision Zero, with all the technical guidelines that we developed in Mexico City in order to start creating safer infrastructure and multimodal infrastructure. The police were one of our allies to implement the new traffic regulation because they are the ones who have the choice in order to do this. And of course, the public participation in conferences, meetings, summits is very important because we were giving all the results that we have been building. The FIA Foundation also is a very important ally of us. This is part of the infrastructure that we are building right now in the city. This intersection was a very dangerous one. All the infrastructure that you may see right now, it was non-existent. It was all gray space for cars, and it was crazy for the people who wants to cross the intersection, and it was a school district too. So this is part of what we are working right now, a safer city for everybody, a more inclusive one, a more democratic one, of course. A complete street is part of our job. When you have a cycle lane, you have a proper line for buses. When you have a proper sidewalk, of course, safer intersections. So we have been working a lot the last 3 years in this. We signed the Yo Me Muevo initiative, that it is an initiative that all the NGOs launched in this political election in order to have the compromise and the commitment of the candidates with this agenda. So this was important too because all the candidates, the Senate ones, and also the ones who are running for the city, they already signed it. And we have been working a lot, of course, with our partners in Latin America. This is Sergio Avellaneda. You may know him. He is the former Ministry of Transport in Sao Paulo. Also here we have Paola Tapia. She is also former Ministry of Chile. Marta Serrano, she's working right now in Madrid in the transport direction. Also we have Lisa Castillo over here. She's former Ministry of Transport in Costa Rica. Daniela Chacon, she's counselor in Ecuador. Paula Bissau, she is Vice Ministry of Mobility in Buenos Aires. So we have been creating together this huge network in order to start working together. So that's why also I want today to announce you that this Thursday we are going to launch an Ibero-American initiative for women. We're going to implement a leadership center for women. We want you to have more political skills in order to do your job. So I think that between you, we have great technical persons, technical women who are working in your city officers, or also in your private sector or in the civil society. But we want you to give more skills: negotiation, crisis management, leadership, empowerment. So that's part of what we are going to do. And well, in 2012. We started a mobility movement in Mexico City, and we are constructing together activists, industry, universities, government, and a new model of urban governance. We believe in change, and one of the most important challenges of every urban area is to improve the quality of the life population. The congestion, pollution, crashes of the car-oriented model was jeopardizing it. So we need to change it and build a more accessible and inclusive model. This is how the new mobility model was born in Mexico City, changing the old roads-intensive model to safer and sustainable public transport-oriented one. This was a very big battle for the pedestrian in our city. The greatest honor in my life will be to change and achieve a long-term victory in this agenda, in which the next generation of mobility public servants and activists will continue the transformation of the mobility model, improving the results we have achieved. So maybe you are wondering now, okay, Laura, but what's the secret here? Keep walking. It doesn't matter if you are afraid. I mean, keep walking, especially if you are afraid. And don't stop. You will see that you will find yourself doing things that you didn't know that you were capable of. Second, teamwork. You don't have to walk alone. You are not alone. Find the people who share your passion and walk together. Thank you very much.